that will do it. Okay, everybody. I think we made it. I think we made it to this episode. Welcome to the HooperCast Movie Hour, everybody. It is episode 301. We're over the 300 humps, and we made it to a new threshold. So if you enjoyed that, if this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. And you can listen and watch the show in a variety of ways. There's podcast platforms and then one video platform called YouTube. And that's about it for us. So with me as always as Dustin Weldon, and gracing us with her premiere appearance on our show. We're really happy to welcome our second Austinite and third Texan to this show. Briana Aiken, thank you so much for coming on.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you.
That might be my best.
That was awesome.
I'm terrible at those normally, so.
I was just like, oh my, it's me.
All these titles, yeah. I do live in Texas. Austinite.
I am from Texas.
That's right. So we wanted to talk about a specific movie and then have a discussion about it after the fact. So let's go ahead and get right on into it tonight. No film news, nothing. One movie tonight, and that movie is, of course, let me make sure I got this. All right. What was it? Concrete Cowboy. Son of a bitch. I hit the thing and made a bunch of noise. Hold on a second. Okay. Concrete Cowboy.
Be alone out here, man. I'm gonna get my money, and I'm gonna get up out of here. You with me or not, bro?
But them streets that made you a man overnight. I'm your father, man.
You ain't my father! I mean, you a father to everyone else out here. Oh, you hate me, man.
I was just like you now. I don't know who they expect us to grow up and be free, watching over our shoulder all our lives.
That was a little snippet from the trailer of Concrete Cowboy, and it is directed by Ricky Staub. Co-written by Ricky Staub and Dan Walzer. Yeah, Walzer. And it stars Idris Elba, Caleb McLaughlin, Jarrell Jerome, Byron Bowers, Lorraine Toussaint, and Clifford Method Man Smith. I had no idea that was him.
Man, yeah.
I was like,
oh my
know.
God, hello.
I know.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah. I was like, who is this person? And he was great. So this movie's on Netflix. It was released this year. I think it was obviously independently made. It was supposed to premiere at Toronto Film Festival in September of last year, and then it did not because the festival did not happen. And then so it was digitally released April 2nd, 2021 on Netflix. Dustin, why don't you take us through this movie, because we are here and we're watching this movie and having this discussion at your behest.
Request. Sure.
Yes. Behest, request, dressed.
All right, let's get into it. So Concrete Cowboy, like you said, it is a newer film. It's released this year. So you may not have even heard of this. This is kind of flying under most people's radar, it seems. But by and large, so the film is about Caleb McLaughlin's character Cole, and Cole is sort of a troubled young kid, and his mom, to protect him, sends him to live with his father in Philadelphia. His father and he are estranged. They don't have any relationship whatsoever. And as luck would have it, or fate would have it, his father is a part of this group of Black cowboys in Philadelphia, this, age-old tradition that's kind of also flown under the radar of many people. And so he kind of gets firsthand experience riding, I almost said riding cows. That's not what you do. You ride horses. I should have just kept going and not even mentioned that. What happened in my brain?
That's a fun movie.
Riding horses and, cleaning out the stables and all that good stuff. All the while, a good friend of his that he sort of rekindles a relationship with is sort of urging him in a different direction, and one that his father doesn't want him to go down. So there's, good conflict there with the Cole character. What am I going to do? What kind of person do I want to be? And will I let my dad have a chance at kind of shaping me, or not? And so, it's a good little film. Like I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know how you guys felt. We haven't spoken at all about it. So I enjoyed it. I always have wanted to see this film. I first found out about it because it was hitting the festival circuit, and I was like, okay, look, Idris Elba, I love. And then like Westerns, I love. And I was just like, this is kind of like both. And so I thought I'm going to see this. And so when I found out it was coming to Netflix, I was like, all right. So I think I saw this. It wasn't on April 2nd, but it was like a couple days later. It felt like I was tuning into this. So yeah, I enjoyed it. What did you guys think?
What was your star rating, Dustin?
Oh, sorry. I gave this 4 stars. I enjoyed it a lot.
4 out of 5. Okay.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Briana, what about you?
Okay. I thought it was a super interesting story. I must say and admit that my level of interest peaked when the credits rolled, which reason being, you get to find out that 2 main characters in the film are actually Fletcher Street writers. Mm-hmm. Which I was just like, that just took it to another level for me, where I was like, okay, that's actually pretty dope. I thought that they were actors, or at least I thought the love interest was an actor. You couldn't tell me that she wasn't. So I thought that was really, really neat. Aside from that, I was a little disappointed with character development for the Smush character. And I was a little disappointed with some of the tropes. Like, you have a mother who's just like, I'm tired of my son's shit, so I'm going to shovel him off to my husband. And,
my bad boy husband.
Yeah.
It's like a reverse Fresh Prince. I'm going to send you to Philly.
Yeah. I'm going to take you from Detroit to Philly. Like,
right.
For me personally, I am definitely in the realm where I'm just like, I want to see like the uplifting stories, Black stories. I'm a little fatigued with like Black trauma, but this is not exactly a Black trauma story. This definitely highlights a troubled youth who finds his way through community. And it touches on a lot. Gentrification. It touches on, drugs and kids' involvement in it, trying to get out of poverty and the struggle and stuff like that. So with all those themes packaged in it, having those big named actors like Idris Elba, I love him, and Caleb, Stranger Things can't hold him back. Well, I won't say that because I love Stranger Things, but when an actor kind of gets like not typecast, but just like, oh, he's a nerdy little kid from the show. Like right. He was out here hard, okay? He was sweating.
Yeah.
He was cussing.
He was crying.
I was like,
yeah.
Caleb.
Yeah.
But we really got to see his range, which was really awesome to see. So I'm not sure what my star rating would be. I did enjoy the film, but I had complicated feelings with some of the themes, and sometimes I felt that there was like some predictable plotting where the father's like, "Don't do that," and he's like, "I'm gonna do it." He's like, "Okay," and then he's like, "All right, so don't hang with that friend. I'm gonna do it." So I don't know. I went and read some reviews because I was kind of curious. I was like, man, am I overly critical for this film? Like, geez Louise. And I mean, a lot of people loved it. So yeah, that's where I'm at mostly.
So I gave this 4. And for me, it did that thing that movies that I like. It did that thing that movies do, and I like it when it does those things where you watch it and then at the end you go, "Oh, that's real." Like it's not just a fun idea. It's like, and of course you could look and see it's based on a book, but I love we have a strange relationship with based on true events, because it's always based on true story, based on true events, based on real people. I kind of wish that it would just say like I wish that movies when they started would just say like, it would just have a text crawl that just says, this is based on real shit. And you know, characters, things, themes, events, like things that happen. Like these are things that happen. But with real people involved. I liked the reveal of the Fletcher Street Riders. I was surprised too. I was like, wow, not only were y'all not actors, you were good not actors.
You're good.
And then it made sense why those people were in the movie on horses so much. And so for me, it brought my attention to a corner of America and of Black America that I had zero awareness of. Just I like when movies kind of bring me to this new world, this new area I'm unfamiliar with, and tell a good story in it. So to me, it was just a good story, well told, if not I don't want to say tropish or formulaic, but familiar story territory, but in a way that we've never seen before. So yeah, that's probably where I would go for. So I guess I guess for in terms of like who would we recommend it to, just to wrap up the review section of all this, do you think the average person would get something out of this movie or not, Briana?
I think so, because I don't think the average person even knows, I mean, beyond the tropes that I was kind of complaining about and pointing out. I don't think the average person knows that culture exists in Philadelphia, of all places, which is like, there's definitely the appeal there. I definitely would recommend it to anyone who was open to watching it, or at least knowing like, hey, this is definitely not talked about at all.
Right.
Check it out. So.
Yeah, and I think I would recommend it just to anybody who wants a good drama, because I think it's worthwhile, and make no mistake about it. Like, I recognize the tropes in here, and you know, there's certain things that happen, and we won't go into it, but there are certain things that happen in the film that I think maybe were supposed to be more shocking than they ended up being, or more unpredictable than I think they were in actuality. And so the tropes are there. For me, the strength of it was in performance and in the fact that I enjoyed just watching it. And like you said, Hooper, just kind of getting an awareness of something that I didn't know existed. So I would recommend it just for those reasons. And I think I'm always drawn to these stories where I love coming of age stories. And I feel like this is one. It's a story of a young boy trying to figure out like, what kind of man am I going to become? I've always loved those types of stories, and so this is it, just sort of told in this pseudo Western kind of environment. And so my thought was like, you know, if I'm putting on my writer's hat, I'm obviously going to be interested in telling a story about how this thing positively affects people in its community in this area. And so, you know, I guess the easiest way to do that is through conflict in like one like guy being pulled in two directions. One I'm going to frame as good, and one I'm going to frame as bad. And it's black and white. There's not like, well, it's good, but, or it's bad, but. It's just, it's good, it's bad. And so I understand the bias in it, and I understand the, like, just that, simplicity to it, I guess. But in a weird way, I'm drawn to the simplicity of it, because that's what so many coming of age stories are. It's like, this is what's good for the character, and I'm not going to present the audience with anything alternative. And so yeah, like, so if you like coming of age stories, and if you're interested in learning about things that you probably don't know about, and if you're interested in anything that Idris Elba's done, or I would also throw in Caleb McLaughlin, because you're right, like he earns his stripes here. Like the guy can act, and I love Stranger Things too. I hope we get to see more of this Caleb McLaughlin in Stranger Things season 4, because this was really great. So, so yeah, I would recommend it. And yeah, I would.
So okay, cool. So that's on Netflix right now, Concrete Cowboy, and will be there till the end of time, because it is their film now. So
correct.
Yes. All right, cool. Well, let's go to break real quick. When we do come back, we are going to introduce a topic to discuss. And Dustin, how exactly did you put this when you pitched it to me?
Oh shoot, I don't know what
I think you said. So Ricky Staub is not black; he is white, and the question was, does that matter in telling a story like this? Is it does it have less merit? Does it have just as much? And when is it okay or not okay?
Yeah, is it ever appropriate
right.
for that to be the case? Yeah.
So we'll discuss that after the break, and yeah, okay. Well, be right back then. HooperCast Movie Hour. Back on the HooperCast Movie Hour. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you want to watch and listen to some movies this weekend, there's some stuff on streaming you can check out. The nifty little TV Guide article in the show notes. I scrolled down. I picked out some stuff, some favorites, some things to check out. So this weekend we've got Army of the Dead on Netflix on Friday, which I will probably check out. I've heard some good things about this, so I think I'm going to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Hulu, we have the premiere of the Marvel's MODOK series with Patton Oswalt. So that ought to be interesting. I don't think I'm going to tune in for that. I don't really have any interest, but I imagine lots of people will check it out. It looks interesting. Have y'all seen any I say press?
I think I saw the teaser trailer for it.
I haven't seen anything for this.
It's very strange, but
it looks like Robot Chicken.
Yeah, it's a lot like Robot Chicken. Yeah. All right, so we've also got a documentary called Neat: The Story of Bourbon. I love bourbon, so I might check that out. Also on Hulu. So on Amazon,
Bourbon.
What?
Bourbon.
Bourbon. Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Bourbon.
Bourbon.
Poupon.
Bourbon.
Pardon me. So, and then on Amazon, there is what I can assume is some sort of concert movie, but it is Pink. All I know so far. And damn it, I love Pink, and I'm gonna check that out for real, because I'm impressed by that lady. I love Pink, and I'm gonna watch this movie. I also watched one there's one on Netflix for Lady Gaga, and there's another one for Taylor Swift. I watched that shit too. Okay, it was amazing.
I've known you a long time, and I never knew this side of you.
I love it. I love Pink.
Deep appreciation.
Glitter in the air, Dustin.
Okay.
Disney Plus has got nothing for me right this weekend, because I'm just waiting on Loki to show up, and HBO Max. I also nothing. I'm about to phase the service out for a little bit to wait on the new releases, but I did watch Greenland. Like I said last week, I was going to check that out, so I did watch that over the weekend. So I'll review that at some later date. But Black and White, that's a thumbs up for me. So you could check out Greenland too. All right. Let's get into our discussion. As we talked about before the break, we're talking about the idea that this film, Concrete Cowboy, that features an all-black cast, is very much about black culture, a specific niche of black culture, is written and directed by a white man. And does that... People have opinions about it. I mean, it comes up because it's talked about in some places. I also found a couple of things on Reddit, people who have similar questions about this sort of topic that I'll dip and chime in with for a minute. But Dustin, did you think of this because you had seen those discussions, or did it just occur to you upon researching the filmmaker?
Yeah, no. So after I saw the film and I thought, oh, I enjoyed that. Let me go see what other people thought. I started Googling and there were some reviews that had mentioned that the film was directed by a white guy, which I did not know. I didn't suspect that through the film.
It's not like at the end on the credits they put up a picture of him, like
right, yeah, right. I just had no idea. So but I will say that when I heard it, it did make me think a little differently of the film. And I saw a lot of people who were immediately sort of negative on the film because of that reason. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? I completely understand that. I feel that now that I know that. And so, but then the question was, well, but why? Why do I feel that? And why do these people that I'm reading these reviews feel that way? And so what is it about these stories being told by a white person? What does that mean in terms of our enjoyment of them or its reality? So that was the question I wanted to pose to the podcast, to our listeners, to the both of you. Hearing that, what feeling does that bring up to you?
I think that's a super interesting question, and I think as creatives, no matter the race, if you're going to be touching on someone else's cultural background, it has to do with a level of care, and maybe the creative even asking themselves, why do I want to tell this story? Not just to flex my creative juices, because sometimes these stories go in places that are extremely personal to, let's say, the Black experience. Or if I, a Black woman, write about a Chinese immigrant, let's hope it's not riddled with stereotypes or, just something that I think that's, someone of that background would face. So I think that I think that it can be done, because there are creatives out there that I think that can make works of art that is reflective, as long as it's mindful and they speak to that person in the community. And I feel like maybe a better question is, what is the impact? Like we should be looking at is the impact of that art or film. Like I think about when Tarantino in some of his films and writing himself in and saying the N-word willy-nilly because, it's why not? Because I can. It's something they would say. Why not? And it's, people take issue with that. And so I think that it all comes down and all boils down to impact. After watching this movie, I saw that there was a GoFundMe for the stables. It brings awareness. I thought that was really cool. But that's pretty much the meat of how I feel about it, is that it can be done, but there's a level of care that comes with it. And, in Hollywood, if we're going to specifically stay with white writers telling Black stories, Black trauma. They're delivering stories of Black trauma, and there's not like, let's say, a movie like Harry Potter that features an all-Black cast. Right. But it's like, wait, is that a Black film? And it's like, or it's just kids who are wizards. That's something that I would love to see in Hollywood. And I don't think it should be taboo and left for just Black creatives to make these stories, because honestly, these stories could be made by people who want to tell it But if it's going to be specific to, if it's not going to be fantasy and it's going to root specifically from traumatic and problematic dialogues and experience, then I feel that there has to be a level of care, or there's just something that's going to be amiss.
I feel a couple of films come to mind when it comes to like what I want to see from where I'm sitting, because I am of the opinion that intention matters and impact matters, and ultimately it has to be about the story and the characters. But I do see a trend, and we have seen a trend for years of, when there are, white people telling black stories, or mostly white people telling black stories, it is very like, it's about slavery. It's 12 Years a Slave, or it's about struggles, which are important to showcase and to bring awareness to. But at a certain point, like I would read about like how do people of color feel about movies like this, just kind of over and over. And that's your representation in Hollywood. And a lot of people were like, it's kind of depressing. The idea that this is the only experience that we as a people have gone through that's worth showing on screen. Whereas if you get more movies about black excellence, you've got a movie like Black Panther, just to pick the low-hanging fruit, an excellent film, entertaining, and it's all about how awesome Africans are and Wakanda is, and it gives people icons to look up to, not without some sort of like dealing with opposition, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with race. It's just here's a black story, and here's characters that anyone can look up to. Another film that I feel like I'd say less important or socially impactful, but still great, is a movie like Cool Runnings, which is I love Cool Runnings. And there might be a few like, 90s, I don't want to say ignorance, because there's nothing in that movie that's just like, ugh, like doesn't age well, but it's about four guys from Jamaica making it to the Olympics, and there's opposition, but it's not even from like white Southerners. It's from like Germans, which it's easy to make Germans kind of mean to people who aren't like them.
Right.
And in the 80s, I think was when that movie takes place. But so for me, like, does it matter that this filmmaker is white? It depends on the person. For me, it doesn't. However amount of weight that carries. But for other people, it might say like, yeah, but you can't internalize the story you're telling to the degree that, a person of color could. And I ultimately do think it's just a matter of opinion, but I don't think that there's a reason why we have to react like it's definitely bad or it never matters.
Always bad.
Right. It has to be, well, what's the impact? What's the intention? I have something more to say on that, but Dustin, you chime in if you would. I'm going to pull up a couple quotes here from this parallel story on Reddit.
Yeah. One thing that I think had hoped was that time would show, and that you guys would agree with me that it can be done. And selfishly, one of the reasons is I've been for some time writing a story with a black protagonist. And so I started to be like, should I? And so, no. Oh no, can I do this? But the whole point was, when I found out that Ricky Staub directed this film, what it didn't necessarily affect the way that I viewed the film, but it did affect the way that I viewed certain stereotypes within the film. And so that's where I think what Briana was talking about, this level of care that goes into it, is let's make sure we're not playing into stereotypes or reinforcing those, but maybe let's take a minute to give nuance and to give true care to what we're saying here. And so I would agree with you. I think that the impact is important. Connor, you mentioned motivation is important. Your intention is important. And so I think all of these things kind of go together to create a finished product. And so yes, I don't think that it is inherently wrong for someone to write anything. But again, it's that level of care that goes into it. And Briana, you also mentioned fantasy. Like, so my mind went to like Star Wars and John Boyega's character. And it's like, so that obviously was not written by a person of color. That was written by the whitest man imaginable. And so what happened within that was, maybe a mishandling of that character, but also you do have to wonder where that line is when you're talking about fantasy and say, well, this isn't really going to comment on the Black experience any more than it's going to comment on the Englishman's experience in space, because they're not British in space, right? And so I think that's where the line does get blurry, but I do think that intention and care is king, and making sure that you're telling a good story, a story that people want to see and will have fun watching, but also one that impacts society in a positive way. So Hooper, you got those quotes pulled up?
I do. And then Brianna, I'll toss it back to you to kind of reflect on that. So this guy essentially was offered to direct a play. I don't even know what play it is. I just know it's an all Black cast. So he's going through this long. This is the meat of what he was asking. It just struck me that I might be doing something wrong by accepting this opportunity. I've heard time and again on social media and in the world at large, good Lord, I cannot read, that white people need to step aside when it comes to talking about the BIPOC experience, this Black, Indigenous, people of color. So my question is, am I allowed to accept this opportunity that was offered to me, or do I have to turn it down because the school wants to do a show that is BIPOC centric and I am white? I have so many great scripts in mind by some of the best playwrights out there, all BIPOC, that I would be truly honored to direct, and would do so with respect for the story and by encouraging the actors to drive the narrative by drawing from their experiences. But I feel like I have heard and read, especially this past year, that intentions don't really matter, that because I'm white, it's inherently wrong for me to be the director for a story that focuses on BIPOC characters. And, people largely were kind of in lockstep with us. Like, there's nothing wrong with you for you accepting it, but you can consider, this person says, you can consider having someone BIPOC as some kind of counselor if that makes you more comfortable. You can use his or her advice for more in-depth points. And someone chimed in and said, adding to this, please pay that person for their time. Don't ask a BIPOC person to do free labor. Don't ask anyone to do free labor, but especially someone who's offering this kind of advice.
Yeah, that's some solid ass advice, honestly, because as a creative, flex your muscles. But if you're aware of this, right, and there is definitely resources that are available to you that can add to the art, speaks to the art, also speaks to what type of person you are and what you want to pour into, like the works of, like if it's going to add to the Black community and you want to make sure that, I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that this is handled with care. I feel like that advice is super solid because it opens the door for collaboration. And that collaboration is awesome for allyship. And it shows that, we want to tell these stories and we don't want to just, make money, get the accolades, get, whatever, especially if it's about a specific background, So, yeah, I think that's super solid advice, and pay them. And also name them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's other things I could read off, but Dustin, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't.
Yeah, someone wrote in here, this is a very nuanced topic. Props to you for asking. Clearly, your intentions are purely good. With that being said, if the focus right now is for them to highlight BIPOC talent, stories, etc., I guess the first question are, wow, do you have the background to give this type of production the direction it needs? Are you the right person to lead that ship? Do you have anything particularly special or important to bring to the table when it comes to the themes and topics covered in a BIPOC story? If not, maybe this isn't the time for you to lead this project. Maybe this is the time to recommend a BIPOC director that could not only do the stories justice, but also gain something important from an opportunity like this. What about that sort of thing? Because I guess if it were me, I'd be thinking like, you almost weigh like, you know, what the opportunity could mean for you. And especially if you think you can tell the story well versus, do you know who you could just hand the project to that this company or entity would equally endorse? Like, oh, cool. You know, or would they be like, this person's never directed something before, nothing to do with rate, you know? So I guess all things being equal, if you have a peer who is of color and has pretty much just as many credits as you do, I guess that just comes down to, what do you feel like? I don't know how I would navigate that situation.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And that kind of goes into what we kind of talked about earlier with the film, is asking that tough question. And what is motivating me to tell me this particular story? And am I the right person to tell this story? And that's just, again, making sure that you're covering all of your bases. And if you feel like you can't do that, then again, you have to ask yourself that tough question. Am I the right person? Even though I'm being given this amazing opportunity. And, you know, we see it happen all the time, like white director, they do what they do. But I think that is definitely a tough question that I feel like not a lot of people will really sit down and ask themselves when it comes to delivering this story and saying, like, am I going to do it justice? And if they believe that they're going to do it justice or that they can do it service, are they, you know, going down the list of trying to cover all their bases and making sure they're not shoveling over a load of just stereotypes and being like, we did it. But I think that's super, super interesting. Kind of cool to see people talking about it. I didn't know that people were having those types of conversations. So
I feel like that's the most interesting thing about film the past few years. I don't know. We feel like we're having these conversations more, you know, and like for better or worse, like there's some of these kind of go nowhere, or they go in a kind of a weird direction where we're telling, you know, either very, very famous directors to not make films, or very famous actors to not do roles because they're not representative of this or that. Which is a larger conversation, but we're having the discussions about like, so just so you know, when you only show one kind of depressing film to, you know, an entire generation of young Black people, it doesn't give them much hope for how they're going to be treated in the future. And whether it's white or Black filmmakers who will change that, or at least provide a leg up or some kind of platform to people who will tell positive stories, you know, that's a step in the right direction. I feel like either way. I mean, to me, it's a good problem to have. It's almost like, you know, should white directors be directing Black stories? It's like, it's cool though that we're telling these stories, right? And like I focus on like, but we're it's almost, it's definitely not splitting hairs, but it's one of those things where it's like, isn't it great that we're arguing about this? Because, you know, instead of arguing about should there be Black stories, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like,
I mean, like that mindfulness though, it's like, so powerful, you know, just the fact that I want to do this with care, because we know, like, you know, those tropes, like Black people getting killed in a horror film first, you know, it's comical because it's perfect. It is a trope in movies. So it's just like, it's cool to see those departures. It's cool to have, like, I think allyship is the best thing. Collaborative, like, hey, let's kind of step out of what Hollywood is just like, come on, just keep cranking that out. You know, it's that thoughtfulness and mindfulness that it's like, good. We'll see where this goes. So,
yeah. I think it's the best time ever to be in that, talking about, you know, like stepping out of the system, because we have all these options. We have all these avenues for independent film to get noticed by people. And a film like this, you know, I was going to Toronto, but it would have just ended up as a rental on iTunes, and we would have heard of it if other people wanted to tell us about it. And you know, that's where something like Netflix, strange behemoth filled mostly with generic content that it is, you know, brings us something that sparks an important conversation, an interesting one. We don't usually do this on the show, but I just to sort of put a button on all this, not really, because we're kind of changing the subject, but what Briana, what are you watching right now? Like, are you in the middle of any show or movie that you have been enjoying? Or
I am, honestly. I love, like, adult cartoons. Right now, I just finished Invincible, and that has been an interesting watch, because I know, like, it does have a touch of gore or violence, which is
just a touch,
just a little splash,
a little wincy bit.
But I had a lot of fun watching it, and I thought it was really, really cool. What else? I just watched the first episode of Bad Batch, which is a Star Wars animated series on Disney Plus, and that was fun. I liked that. So I most likely will be watching more of that. And I plan to watch the newest season that came out for Castlevania, and yeah, I love my animation, man. I'm really, really into that.
Have you seen, just weird question, have you seen Young Justice?
I haven't.
Okay, you should.
I haven't.
You should. Especially the latest season. It's on HBO Max. And the first two seasons were on Cartoon Network. The third season's on HBO Max, so they are allowed to get a little more adult with it. So
sweet. Okay, cool.
Dustin, are you in the middle of anything interesting?
My wife and I have started watching a bunch of old movies that just I have had blind spots to, that either she's seen or, you know, none of us have seen. We recently watched The Breakfast Club. I've never seen The Breakfast Club.
I only saw that recently as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So like
ago.
this is just a huge blind spot for me. And so, like, I have it, and I bought it on Blu-ray, and I was like, I'm going to watch this, and I never watched it. And so anyway, we're kind of going back through old movies that we should have seen and haven't. So
I'm about to undertake poking 20 years ago into movies that I never got around to seeing and seem to have survived time and criticism. Just figured that's enough time to shake those out and see what's still in the trap. So, but I'm not talking about any of those things because I haven't done that yet. That was an idea I had this morning. But right now I am plowing through Brockmire, which is a show on. It was on IFC, but it's on Hulu now, and I'm trying to get through. We're after The Handmaid's Tale this season. We're gonna hiatus Hulu, so I'm like, oh god, what am I watching on Hulu? So I'm getting through Brockmire. I'm in the second season. I think there's 4. It's Hank Azaria, people would know from The Simpsons, and The Birdcage as well. It's a very very dirty and fun show. about a baseball announcer, talks like this all the time, and he's doing speedballs, and he doing a podcast, and he can't understand why his life's not working out. And it's an interesting show. It's just a weird premise that him and Harry Shearer came up with, and then he kind of made it into this character. And then I think it was a Funny or Die video, and then they pitched it to IFC, and it became a series. And
wow,
I'm enjoying it. So if cool. They're short, there's like eight episode seasons, and they're like 22 minutes long. So it's relatively easy, except for those ads. But so it makes them seem a lot longer, especially when Hulu likes to run the same exact 90-second ad
over and over.
Which, because it didn't start that way. And my wife was like, "Why do they do that?" And I was like, "You know why? Because for like a year or two, they gave you, just advertisements, and then you grew accustomed to that and you tolerated it. So now they're like, oh, you don't want to go to premium, do you? Why don't you watch the same ad, son of a bitch?" And and now you're like, I can deal with ads, but I can't deal with watching the same ads. And they're like, yeah. So
give us that money.
I'm going to resist it for a little bit longer. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I've been watching. And
let me recommend this to you, Hooper. So my wife and I have also been watching through the latest iteration of DuckTales.
Okay.
This is your oldest boy is probably still maybe a little too young to fully grasp it, but man, that's the perfect little boy show. Like I keep watching it and I'm like, I would have loved the crap out of this. In fact, I did. I loved the original so much, and now I love this one. And I'm just like, it's like monsters and adventures and finding cool things and people that are cool and funny. And anyway, so I recommend that for your kids.
I might be able to get him to watch it because it involves animals, but he really wants to watch animals hunt each other. So does Scrooge McDuck get mauled?
I don't think so, nor does he hunt.
Wow.
But you know what? Your oldest would probably like it.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah. It's a lot of weird Barbie stuff right now happening in my house.
Well, throw some ducks with top hats on there.
Briana, thanks for coming on. Please come back.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Dustin, pleasure as always, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks
everybody for listening and watching. We'll be back probably next week to talk about other stuff and other movies. Cheers.